based in LA. He comes to speak with us about mentorship, restoring harmony in advance. A 25-year veteran of United, he graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1982. I asked him, where did he go to college? He didn't have an answer. Come on! And spent 9 years on active duty before joining United. When he's not flying, he conducts rehearsals for the Colorado Children's Chorale and rides mountain bikes in the Front Range. This is his book, okay? Some of you guys may have seen it before, okay? He is a 3-time first place CIPA and award-winning book in the Symphony of Your Life, Restoring Harmony When Your World is Out of Tune. Please help me welcome our speaker, Mark Hardcastle.
Anybody recognize this? Yeah, it's in the light. What is it? Yeah, it's a conductor's baton. Really not much to it, just this little wooden handle here and this white plastic tip. But for something so basic, it's powerful. In the right hands, this little baton can inspire violins, brass, percussion to create meaningful symphonies. And the good news is, you have one. Today you are conducting the symphony of your life. But the bad news is, from time to time, our symphonies go out of tune. If you've ever been to a 5th grade band concert, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the question then becomes, how do we restore harmony when our worlds go out of tune? How do we respond when fortune challenges us and those around us with difficult times? There's an opportunity for mentorship there. Let me take you back a couple of years to a moment when my world was out of tune. May 18th, 2012, I was over in Moab, Clicker. There it is. With a bunch of my friends go there every year to ride mountain bikes. And we came out of the condo that morning, and every one of us had on our spandex bike shorts. Yes, you have an image. You're welcome. We were also wearing our form-fitting, muscle-exposing bike shirts, our wraparound sunglasses, our multicolored helmets, looking good, ready to ride. So we made our way up to the trailhead for the Porcupine Rim Trail. And now keep in mind, the guys I was riding with were some pretty hardcore riders. There was, Ron Davis was one of them. And Brian McClintock, that's him there in the middle. Some of you know him. A couple other guys, Derek Van Hosen, Dirk Dent, some United guys. Hardcore riders. Me, not so much. So I volunteered to hold down the rear guard. And I let them take off down the hill through the willows ahead of me towards the Castle Valley Overlook. Now, at about 45 minutes into the ride, that particular trail crosses a paved road. So about that time, I looked off in the distance, and sure enough, there they were, you know, popping up on the pavement back down into the dirt. And eventually, I made my way down to the paved road there, skipped up on the pavement, back down into the dirt on the other side. And that's when I saw this half-buried log across the trail. These rocks over here and these willows over here. And I remember thinking, I'm either going to have to jump there or go around it. And that is the last thing I remember from the ride. Yeah, I hear the nervous laughter there. You know where we're going with this. Well, the next thing I remember is waking up, recognizing that I was still on the trail, but I wasn't on my bike anymore, and I wasn't moving. In fact, I couldn't move my right arm. I was paralyzed. And my world was out of tune. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute, but I'd like to take just a moment here to add my thanks. You've heard lots of thanks already today, but I'd like to start by, again, thanking Ron. Where's Emil? Is Emil still here? Well, then, Brian, you're going to have to thank him for me. It's an honor to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to come give some stories that maybe bring mentorship to life a little bit. But Ron's not here, obviously, and Brian has graciously stepped into the breach, as we talked about before. So, Brian, thank you for being willing to take over and do that today while Ron's having some well-deserved R&R. And then you guys, thanks for coming today. You know, Woody Allen tells us that 80% of success in life is, anybody know what he says? Showing up. Showing up. Yeah, and I know for a fact that every one of you guys raised your hand to be here an instructor evaluator at United Airlines. Nobody forced you to do this. That tells me you're the kind of people who show up, the kind of people I like to hang out with. So thank you for giving me a chance to do that today, spend some time with you as we talk about bringing conscious mentorship to life. Now, before we get to this year's focus topic, if you don't mind, I'd like to back up just a little bit and review some more of what we talked about last year. Our focus topic last year was conscious leadership objectives, and we had some specific ideas we wanted to accomplish. You remember Mark Ho was up here last year, and he talked about some challenges that are being offered to our new hires and to our new captains. He told us about the last day, for instance, of basic NDOC. You remember how he talked about that and how each one of the new hires is invited to stand up before the room and tell a little bit about where they come from and what they bring to United Airlines that nobody else can bring. It's going to make us a great company again. And then they're asked to distill that down to one word, their legacy word. Or as Oscar called it a few weeks ago, their North Star. Remember that? And then he talked a little bit about something similar that happens with captain development. And he challenges those guys a little differently. He says, why should I give you that fourth stripe? What's that going to mean to you today, tomorrow, next week, next month? How are you going to make sure that our passengers have an outstanding experience and they're going to want to come back to us again and again and again? For that matter, Captain, what do you bring to life? It's going to make this world a better place. What's your word? Yeah, that. Those two things, that's happening today at United Airlines. Who would have thought even a few years ago that we in flight operations would be taking that kind of initiative to create the culture, as Brian mentioned a minute ago, that we want United Airlines to be? Well, after we talked about that, we figured out, we talked about what does a great company really look like? And we came to the conclusion that maybe we have a little ways to go yet. Which begs the next question, what can we as individuals do to advance United Airlines in that direction? What can you personally write across the history of United Airlines with indelible ink that will become part of our legacy? When you think of United Airlines as a great company, what do you see? Well, then we talked about, okay, there are a couple of ways we can get there. We talked about the tactical perspective and how that deals with working through the syllabus with excellence so that every one of our trainees leaves our table with the highest level of expertise that they can have. But then we talked about this other idea, this strategic idea. Not only how do we envision United as a great company, but how do we convey that vision to those who can help us, the flight attendants, the ramp agents, the CSRs, in such a way that they not only see the vision, but buy into it and want to help you create that vision in the real world on every flight today. And then we had everyone stand up, you remember, and share with the room what it is that you bring to United that no one else can bring. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do that again today. But if I did, would it be the same word? Or has your vision for United maybe evolved over the last 12 months? A lot of things have been going on here at United for the last 12 months, right? So that'd be okay. I just hope you're thinking about that. And as we transition into conscious mentorship, are you supporting the new hires and the new captains as they think about their vision for United Airlines? I do. Every time I see a halfway in the concourse, I always stop them. Hey, welcome to United. I'm glad you're here. By the way, what's your word? Of course, they always look at me like I got two heads, right? Until I take them back to basic NDOC that last day. And then they remember, oh yeah, that was cool. This is my word. And I live in Denver, which means, of course, that I commute. And it's not unusual to be on that jump seat and recognize that this guy in the left seat, he's upgraded less than a year ago. So it's been less than, since last time we were together and had this conversation that he upgraded. So I asked him the same thing. Hey, what's your word? Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah, here's my word. I hit almost every time. Occasionally somebody forgets. But it's really cool because they think back to that moment that was so full of promise for their career. And they could imagine for just a moment what it would be like to work for a great company. So what are we asking them really when we ask them about their legacy work? What we're asking them is what they bring to the fight. Because in a very real way, it is a fight. You know, our industry is just filled with change. Just an example. I mean, every time the price of oil changes by $1, our fortunes change with it, right? And United is a microcosm of that. I think maybe we have more change than most of the legacy carriers. What was it, 3 days ago? Brian Znotins announced that he was moving on to what he considered to be greener pastures. Just a few weeks before that, we got a new president. A few weeks before that, 2 other new faces on Mahogany Row. And then, of course, back in the spring was the proxy battle, right? On the board of directors. Added some new faces there. Changed the way United Airlines does business. Change. Constant change. Change brings challenge. Challenges in our industry are inevitable. Plato told us 2,000 years ago to be kind. For everyone we meet is fighting a hard battle. Tells me something about you today. Your personal life, your professional life. Tells me something about your mentees. Should tell you something about your mentees. These challenges are inevitable. How are you responding? How are you helping your mentees respond to the challenges that they have to face on a regular basis in our industry and in our company? Well, challenges themselves are not necessarily a bad thing. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. Now, there's somebody whose world was out of tune, wouldn't you say? 1946, Viktor Frankl wrote that life is not so much a quest for pleasure or power, despite what your captor might be telling you on any given day, as it is a search for meaning. And Frankl went on to say that we can find or create meaningful lives in these challenges that we know are inevitable. Here's something happened to us just a year ago. Right in the middle of the LCA conferences. September the 8th last year, a major challenge, a watershed event at United Airlines occurred. Major challenge from massive change. What was it? I see heads nodding. Oh, Smizek. Interesting choice of name. Yeah, Chicago Business Journal ran this article on September the 9th. Oh, wait a second. Maybe that's an example of harmony being restored. You remember how you felt? Do you remember how the air at United Airlines just seemed to change? Your interactions with the flight attendants were just instantly different, right? Yeah, it was like we'd been on a baseball team that had spent the first half of the season losing. We got to the All-Star break, we fired the manager, brought in a new manager, and we started to win the very next day. Nothing fundamentally changed, but things were somehow different. Then 5 weeks later, this happened. And all of a sudden, this great big ship that we thought was in this great big turn seemed rudderless again. And it was like we were right back in that same fight that we'd been in for so many years. How'd you feel? How did you respond? You know, I kind of know how you responded, because I saw you do it. Every day, you got up, put your trousers on, came to TK, and gave your trainees your absolute best. What was it within you that enabled you to do that, despite these massive changes that were going on in our company? Well, I got 25 years at the company, as Brian said. A few years of experience. I look around the room, I think I'm probably middle of the road. So what that tells me is, you know, you've seen it before. This was really just another one of those things, wasn't it? Based on the last 15 years here at the company, we've seen it. We've dealt with it. And we know it's going to happen again, right? So here's a thought. Wouldn't it be cool if you could take all of your experience and compress it down to one nugget? And then you had 30 seconds with one of those new hires that you could use to convey all of your accumulated wisdom What'd you say? Wouldn't it be neat if you could somehow head off the consequences of all of these challenges that we know are going to come to these guys over the next 25, 30, 35, or in some cases 40 years? Yeah, we've seen it before, but they haven't. They're still waiting for their first kick in the teeth. We know it's coming. But wouldn't it be neat if we could head off those consequences? Wouldn't it be great if we could keep their worlds from ever going out of tune to begin with? Wouldn't it be something if you could restore harmony in advance? Isn't that really what mentorship is all about? What we as mentors do? We restore harmony in advance. So what else do mentors do? Well, at the beginning of the day, mentors are teachers. You convey information, sure. But beyond that, you give flashes of inspiration and understanding, way beyond the tactical requirements of the syllabus. You help your people to be good at what they do. Let's do something. Let's pretend that we're in a band, and I am the band leader. You guys are my drum section, okay? So, here's what I'd like you to do. You have a drum in front of you. When I indicate, I want you to strike your drum, and with the intensity that I give you with my baton. Those are the rules. Got it? Ready? And! Oh, come on. I can't be more than that. Isn't that it? Ready? Let's do it again. And! Oh, now that's what I'm after. Now, then there's this. Whoa, yeah, good. Now let's do a series of those, all right? Pay attention now. Keep going. Good. Nice job. Hey, look what you just did. We could have gone all day like that. You became a band just that fast. Great job. Give yourselves a hand. All right, so what happened? What did we do? In musical terms, we changed the time signature. We went from 4/4 time to 3/4 time. Now, let me translate that for pilots. We went from a two-step to a waltz. So the question then becomes, how did we do that? Did I change the tempo or the speed? No, I didn't change the tempo. Did I change the value of the notes I was asking you to play? No, I did not. All I did was ask you to change where we placed the accent. Change the entire character of the music we were playing together. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to serve as a guest conductor in a high school band here in the local area. Now, my job was to come into rehearsals every single day and take out a section, and by section I mean a group of similar instruments, all the clarinets or the trumpets or the drums, and take them across the hall to a smaller rehearsal space and work on a passage of music that they might be struggling with. So time came for me to take the drummers across the hall. Now, you may have figured from what we just did that I am nobody's drummer. But I know one. Anybody here know Steve Fredericks down at 767 Fleet? Freddie? He and I were PIs back when this was going on, and Freddie just happens to be a rock and roll drummer. So I called him up. Hey, can you come help me with this sectional? Sure, I'll be there. So Freddie showed up on the day. We took the kids across the hall and into their rehearsal space, and he had them pull out his piece of sheet music, laid it out, said, just play this passage for me just so I get a feel of where you are. And they did, and it was something like this. Tut, 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 tut. Great. Technically correct, technically perfect, but boring. Nothing musical about it. So I picked up the music and said, hey guys, look here. This is, you see these little marks here? These are what we call accent marks. This is what the composer, well, I'll tell you what, let me just show you. So he pulls out his sticks and he played the same passage, sounded like this. Ta, 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 ta. Very different in character. And you could see it. Light bulbs went on. You could see it in their eyes. Suddenly they understood because of what their mentor had just shown them very clearly, very simply. Inspired understanding of where to place the accents. So how are you guys helping your trainees get beyond the tactical requirements of the syllabus to be strategically musical? How are you helping your people know where to place the accents, to be good at what they do? Mentors teach. Something else mentors do. Mentors inspire us to understand just how far we can go. They inspire us to be our best, to find our best. Several years ago when I was in college, I had a chance to...
No, you
So when I was at the zoo, I had a chance to go to the Army's parachute training jump school down in Fort Benning, Georgia. And if I told you that Fort Benning is in South Georgia, and that I was there in August, you would tell me that it was hot and humid, muggy, sweaty, hard to breathe. Now, it's a 3-week course. First 2 weeks we'll call ground school. It's where we learned all the skills necessary to go out on the 3rd week and jump out of perfectly good airplanes. 5 times I jumped out of perfectly good airplanes. All I can say is I was young and foolish. But here's something you probably know about parachuting. You probably know that when you have a parachute, you come down slower than if you don't. It's kind of the point, right? Something you may not understand is that even when you have that parachute, you still hit the ground pretty hard, and if you're not in really good physical condition, you could be injured. So one of the things the jump masters work really hard on during those first 2 weeks of ground school is making sure everybody's in the best possible physical condition before we go out in that 3rd week and jump out of those perfectly good airplanes. So I did a lot of sit-ups and push-ups under that Georgia sun. Well, the end of ground school, Friday morning, 2nd week, the jump masters showed up with a lesson that's going to be cloaked in physical conditioning. It had nothing to do with jumping out of airplanes. They wanted to show us just how good we could be. So the first thing they did is they ordered us to fall in, which we did. Then they announced, all right, everyone, we're going to go for a 1 mile conditioning run, forward, march. Double time, march. And we were off and running. And let's just say the jump masters established a brisk pace. But then they got faster. And then they got faster again. So by the time we got to the end of the course, we ran an absolute lung-searing sprint, really glad to see that finish line coming up. Well, that's when the second shoe dropped. Great job, everyone. Now we're going to go for another mile. Well, as soon as they sat down, a bunch of the guys dropped out of the formation of risk. They just knew they couldn't go another mile. Not at that pace. Most of us managed to keep running. We only went another 40 to 50 yards. The jump masters called us to a halt. Quick time, march, tune, halt, fall out. We were gasping and wheezing, trying to catch our breath. And the lead jump master came around to the front of the platoon to deliver the lesson of the day. So, all right, everyone, now you understand that if you believe you can keep going as long as you need to, you're probably right. And you also understand that if you believe you can't, as he pointed back at our friends who'd given up just a few yards short of the end. You're probably right about that too, everyone, because you see, it's always mind over matter. You can keep going as long as you need to. You just need to know you can. How are you helping your mentees understand that they can keep going as long as they need to, find that way over, under, around, or through whatever challenge they're facing, whatever obstacle stands between them and where they want to be today? Are you showing them that they can be the best person, the best pilot they can be? Mentors show us that we can. Finally, mentors convey experience. Mo Anderson, former CEO of Keller Williams International, largest real estate company in the world, put it this way. She says, mentorship is the process of converting 2020 hindsight to 2020 foresight. That's a pretty good explanation, wouldn't you say? It works for me. I change it up a little bit. I express it this way. Mentorship is giving the trainee the benefit of the helicopter ride without making them crash the bike. woke up on that trail, my nose and mouth filled with the dust of the Utah desert. I was tailing Charlie, so nobody on the ride even knew I'd fallen. It was up to the next group of riders to come along, find me laying there in the trail. Pulled out their cell phones, called 911, got an emergency response. 45 minutes later, the ambulance arrived up at the crash site. They rolled me up on the backboard, slipped me into the ambulance. 45 minutes later, we're back down in the Moab emergency room where they took x-rays, and we found out the reason my arm was paralyzed was because my neck was broken. And I had a hard battle to fight. Well, Moab's a small town, got a small emergency room. They can take x-rays, but you can't do an MRI. And you need that to be able to diagnose a spinal cord injury. So they called up to St. Mary's Hospital up in Grand Junction, asked them to send the Flight for Life helicopter down for me. They did. 30 minutes later, they wheeled me out there to the helipad. And what you see in the picture here, obviously that's me on the gurney. But that guy in the white t-shirt standing there by my head was one of the guys who was on the ride with me. It's my 18-year-old son saying goodbye as they loaded me into the chopper with a broken neck. Well, the helicopter lifted off for Grand Junction. And the chaos of this rescue melted away. And in the relative calm of that 30-minute cruise up to St. Mary's Hospital, I found myself considering the gravity of my situation. By then, obviously, I knew my neck was broken, my right arm was gone. And the question that came rushing in that I could not push away is, how much worse is this going to get? Was I going to lose my left arm too? What about my legs? I'm going to quit working before I even get to Grand Junction. And if you go just a little bit further down that line of thinking, you come to a pretty dark place. I'm not going to say it out loud. I'll let you get there on your own. But suffice it to say that I understood for the first time on a gut level something I'd known in my head for my entire life. That is that tomorrow, not promised. Is there something you need to say to somebody close to you that you haven't said yet? Is there something you need to do with your kids or your grandkids that you haven't done yet? And what about that one idea you wanted to write across the history of United Airlines with indelible ink? Are you writing that today? Here's my word: urgency. Well, the helicopter landed up there in Grand Junction. They wheeled me into the MRI machine to do the test. Wheeled me back out, and a neurosurgeon came over to give me the news. Yeah, Mark, no fooling, neck's broken in 5 places. That's the bad news. Good news is there's no spinal cord damage. Doc, my arm's paralyzed. Yeah, Mark, the nerves that control your arm are badly bruised back up here at the nerve root, but the bruise is outside the spinal column, which means it will likely recover. Sure enough, it was only a matter of hours before I began to regain function in my right hand. At that moment, I was given a great gift from the universe. That's not what you're thinking. You're thinking, no fooling, sport. You got to walk away from a broken neck. Am I right? Well, what I'm thinking about is what the neurosurgeon did. She trussed me up in a cervical collar and said, for the next 90 days, do not take this collar off under any circumstances. Well, that kind of cramped my style during the summer of 2012. There are things I would have liked to have done, places I'd have gone, things I'd have seen. I couldn't go and see and do with a cervical collar around my neck. This watershed event had brought my life to a sudden stop. I was given the gift of stillness for a change. 3 months to think about how I was going to try to restore harmony to this world that seemed so out of tune. So what did I think about during those long days, longer nights of hardly being able to move? Well, I thought about my mentor and what he taught me about responding to the challenges that fortune throws our way. You were all here last year. You heard Mark talk about his personal 9/11 story, how he spoke so poignantly about having seen his friend murdered by terrorists. But you may not know the rest of the story. After that, he was diagnosed with cancer. And they found it in time. Surgery was successful. But then they found another cancer in another part of his body. This time it was his thyroid. And again, the surgery was successful. But there was a complication this time, and one of the nerves that controls his vocal cords was nicked, and he was left without a voice. And you remember, Mark's a speaker. He goes around the country inspiring our young people, our high school kids, to live lives without limits. And I couldn't talk. And of course, running in the background all this time was the United Airlines bankruptcy, those pay cuts. You were all here. I mean, many of us muddled through. We managed okay. Many of us, not so much. You heard the stories. Maybe they applied to some of you in the room here. The divorces, bankruptcies, worse. Well, Mark found himself over here in this group. 50% pay cut. Couldn't make his house payment. Lost the family home to foreclosure, personal bankruptcy. That's a heavy list. But you'd never know any of it had happened unless you knew it had happened. You all know Mark. He's one of the most positive, optimistic, fun to be around people you never want to know. How does that work? Several months after his vocal cords healed up, we're having dinner, and I asked him. He said, you know, Mark, it's simple. Challenges are inevitable. Sometimes life kicks you where it hurts, and you can either lay there and moan, or you can get up and move on with what's important. Simple, not necessarily easy. But that's what he chose to do. Because he chose to get up, he was able eventually to recover from his personal tragedies, his surgical complications, his financial disasters. Just a couple of weeks ago, he sent me a text. And attached to the text was a photo of a house. A house they just bought. Closed on in July. First house he's been able to own since the bankruptcy. You know, I could hear his voice. I was laying there on the couch, watching NCIS reruns through a morphine-induced haze. How about it, Hardcastle? What you gonna do? You gonna get up? You gonna lay there and moan? All right. Okay, I got up, got back to work. 18 months later, my book was finished. The Symphony of Your Life, Restoring Harmony When Your World is Out of Tune. Stories about fighting through those dark ages for ourselves and those around us, as mentors do. Simple. Wasn't easy. Folks, you've been through the bike crash here at United. You've ridden the helicopter. What did you learn on your chopper ride? Are you telling the new guys? Mentors convey experience. Conductor's baton. Simple, powerful. You have one. Today you're conducting the symphony of your life. From time to time, your symphony goes out of tune. How do you respond when fortune challenges you and those around you with difficult times? Just as important, how are you helping them restore harmony when their worlds go out of tune? Are you supporting them and their vision? You're here today because of where you've been before. You've made history in the past. You're making it again today. What do you do that sets you apart? Do you inspire in understanding? Do you help us to be the best that we can be? Do you convey experience? What do you bring to the fight that no one else can bring that will make United Airlines a great company again? Ladies and gentlemen, mentors. What's your word? It's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for listening.